Many schools serving the poor continue to operate under conditions that are not conducive to learning and teaching, despite the pro-poor resourcing and financing policies of the government. It is, however, the plight of the poorest schools, often in rural communities, that proper and decent school sanitation continues to be a daily challenge. And in line with Tata Nelson Mandela's centenary celebrations, the Department of Basic Education is now paying tribute to him and what he stood for by making a visible difference in the lives of children served by at least 100 of these schools. For more on this, we're very pleased to welcome in studio Mr. Goodwin Khosa, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Education Collaboration, and Mr. Elijah Mhlanga, the Media Liaison Officer for the National and Provincial Communication of the Basic Education Department. Gentlemen, geez, what long titles. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe let's start with this. Elijah, tell us all about this Sanitation is Appropriate for Education initiative.
Well, this is an initiative which is going to be launched on Tuesday by the President together with the Minister of Basic Education. It comes on the back of the challenges that we have been facing insofar as school infrastructure is concerned, particularly sanitation in our schools. You remember there have been 2 learners who passed away as a result of toilets that were not proper and used in our schools. And as a result of that, the President got involved and is now assisting us to try work together with our partners in the private and public sector to get as much resources as possible that can help us to accelerate the delivery of much needed infrastructure in our schools.
Elijah, we're going to talk about the launch later on. I want to hear from Mr. Khosa here what exactly his department's role is going to be in this. I hear you're going to be responsible for all the money, sir.
So, I mean, it doesn't start with the money, it starts with the need. I mean, the department and government as a whole approached the National Education Collaboration Trust and the Nelson Mandela Foundation as well as UNICEF to help drum up support to the President and the Minister to raise additional resources to fast-track the process of eradicating inappropriate sanitation. So the Minister established that there are 3,898 schools countrywide that do not have appropriate sanitation, which obviously has to be addressed. And secondly, there's about 3,801 schools in which there are pit toilets which are unused and should actually be demolished.
Mr. Khosa, we actually do have a graphic for that. Let's look at that graphic so that you can actually take us through it, because I was actually surprised that the Western Cape actually has a 0 number of those pit latrine toilets. So if we can pull that graphic up, can we please have it? There it is. Mr. Khosa, please take us through this. Worrying figures indeed.
So the figures are so close to my eyes, but the 3.8 number that I was talking about is right at the bottom there. That's a number of schools with inappropriate sanitation, which require urgent attention. And next to it, it's about 3,040, so about 3,100 of schools that have pit latrines that need to be demolished.
Okay.
So there are schools that have proper toilets, but still keep the old toilets which have, for instance, big mouths, and kids can easily fall into that. In fact, they're a hazard. Those have to be demolished, and that's why the President and the Minister are trying to get the entire South Africa to work together, one, to demolish and to start providing sanitation infrastructure that's appropriate. But I must say that even within government, increased efforts have been made. So all the provinces have increased their efforts to focus on this particular challenge. And about 2,100 of those schools are being, construction is being fast-tracked within the department. The balance is that which we want to mobilize additional support to try and eradicate the backlogs quicker.
All right. Now, Elijah, Mr. Khosa is talking about the 3,898, but I want to get your response to the criticism by Section 27 that some schools in many areas claim that they were never assessed or audited for this particular initiative.
Well, we have audited all our schools. We know where they are, all of them, in all the provinces. Our officials in the provinces gave us the figures, but a team from DBE also went out to verify, because we couldn't give the President wrong information. That would not be proper. But in addition to that, for our own system and for our own administration, we need to know the state of affairs in each and every school So we know exactly what is taking place, and we've been to those schools. We don't know why people would say we haven't been there, yet we pay teachers who are in those schools every month. It does not make sense to me. So what we are saying is that the figures that we have are accurate, and that we are using them for budgeting every year, and we are using them this time for this particular initiative.
All right. Mr. Khosa, now there was also this issue that you have about 18 months is the time frame that you've been given or given us to allocate the completion of this project. Now the question is, why so long, especially with the private partnership?
So construction does take time. So there's a whole lot of preparatory work that has to be done. So the assessment of the fields where the sanitation has to be constructed, the allocation of those. You'll appreciate the fact that even with so much interest from the private sector, we've got to organize some level of coordination so that we don't step on top of each other. We know who's going in what direction and so on. So that kind of work has to be done. But we want to put up infrastructure that's up to standard. And even that 18 months, it's 18 months that have been set aside for the construction. We still need some 6 months to clean up, mop up, do the audits, report to the nation about how this whole initiative would have gone. Yeah.
All right. Now, is there any specific packing order as to who is going to get, who's going to be attended to first? Is it going to be the schools that are suffering the most that are going to be attended first, Elijah?
Well, of course, there are schools which do not have any toilets whatsoever, especially in the Eastern Cape. Those are going to be priority. And then there are schools where there's insufficient sanitation facilities, and then there are schools where there's a combination of the two, where you have insufficient, inappropriate infrastructure. So all of that work has been done, so we know what we're going to do. But anyway, the provinces were already doing the work to provide such infrastructure, except that the pace was not what South Africans were expecting. So there's a need now to accelerate it. That's why we've brought on board our partners through the NECT to make sure that there's facilitation that will ensure that the work is done as quickly as possible.
Mr. Khosa, we're having a conversation with Elijah, and we're talking about that the problem in some of these schools is the fact that the maintenance of some of these facilities is not up to scratch. Are you going to make sure now with this new initiative that you're going to have measures in place that are going to make sure that the infrastructure that you bring in does not go to waste and it becomes, unusable in the next 2 years?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's being done is to ensure that the kind of technology that is used, it's one that can be maintained easily by the schools.
Okay.
So we don't want the Rolls Royces of this world that schools, ordinary schools can't maintain.
Yeah.
But secondly, I mean, partners in this initiative, such as UNICEF, are big on health and sanitation related health issues, and they're very interested in actually setting up programs that will continue to work with the schools to help them maintain the sanitation facilities that will be provided.
And how are you going to fast track that, Elijah, in terms of after the project has been completed? Are you going to have regular checkups in terms of following up on the projects and that everything is working efficiently? We
do that. We rely on SGBs, we rely on communities, and we do that back in the normal course of business, where we hand over a new structure to say, please take care of this because it's yours. As a department, as DBE, we don't have the capacity to be in 25,000 schools at the same time. The Schools Act empowers the communities through SGBs to take care of the facilities that have been set aside for use by their own children and themselves. So it's very important that each and every person who witnesses the handover of such an important facility takes good care of it, because at the end of the day it's for your own benefit.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Khosa, the President, Ustumile, talk to us about the pledges. How can we then, or the rest of the public, or more companies in the private or even in the public sector that want to contribute to this initiative get hold of you and be part of this drive?
So I must say that some of the companies have started pledging.
Already?
In fact, some of them would not wait.
Okay.
They're already in the field.
So everybody is interested in this.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff.
So what the President will be doing on Tuesday would actually be officially launching the initiative. But it's running already.
Okay.
We have established points and emails that people can use to start registering the pledges. One such popular email, it's taylor@dbe.org,
Start again, Mr. Khosa, with the email.
taylor@dbe.gov.za. But otherwise, if people aren't able to send emails and register those pledges, on Tuesday, they can come and register the pledges at the President's Breakfast, and we'll still have facilities available to register the pledges, afterwards.
And Mr. Khosa, this question, I'm sure everybody wants to know, how do we then know that the money that will be put forth is going to go directly to this project?
So the National Education Collaboration Trust is a special initiative that, vehicle that has been set up for that.
Yes.
It's a partnership initiative. Its governance represents government, the private sector, civil society, and unions. So the trust, the sub-levels of the organizations, and so on. Secondly, this is not the first of the big funds that we have managed. We've managed a couple of them, and we have proper systems, to receive, to administer, and to report on the utilization of the funding, including proper independent audits, and we communicate about the utilization of the funding. So there should be no doubt whatsoever about the correct utilization of the funding. We have so far set up a steering committee made up of the Nelson Mandela Foundation representatives, UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund, ourselves, and we are busy talking to Business Leadership South Africa to make their representative available.
Okay.
Otherwise, everybody will be involved if we did not want an unwieldy big, oversight structure.
Yeah.
But those four represent the key interest in this initiative, and we've made sure that they've been brought together into a governance structure.
Interesting. Elijah, let's wrap this up by getting all the details about Tuesday's breakfast. Well,
it will happen at Sheraton Hotel in Pretoria, 7 o'clock in the morning. And invited guests are going to be expected, but otherwise we expect yourselves to be there as well to support us, because we want South Africans to see that we are serious about this matter and that something is being done, and that after the minister submitted a report to the president, and that the president has also acted on that report, and it's a matter of priority, and that details will be unveiled by the president and the minister on Tuesday morning.
All right. Any further details? Where can they get the information, Elijah?
Well, they can go onto our website. We've established a link that will be fully functional from tomorrow morning. There will be a link there to say sanitation for appropriate education, and then it will give people all the information that they might need.
Elijah, Mr. Khosa, thank you so much, gentlemen, and best of luck with this great initiative. That was Mr. Goodwin Khosa, the CEO of the NECT, alongside Mr. Elijah Mhlanga, the Media Liaison Officer for the National and Provincial Departments of Basic Education. Talking great news with us.